So advanced care planning does help the family as well. What that does is it gives them a sense of being true to the wishes of this person when they may have other ways of thinking of it. They may actually want to, continue with more chemo, or with more, if we're thinking of a cancer patient, or more things that actually, more treatments that keep that person here and with them, and they don't want to lose them. So when they hear that the person has said, no, it's okay, this is what I want, it gives them permission to feel that they can actually honour and be truthful to that person's wish. And what that actually ends up doing for them, in my experience, is that when they enter the bereaved state and they're in their mourning, it actually supports that process for them. So they feel, yes, we did everything she or he wanted. We were really true to their wishes. And so those conversations, as hard as they can be, they are often quite hard for people to be talking about this, the idea of death, and that, it's for some people who, if they're doing their advanced care plan long before they've got an illness, it's a harder thing to look at. But if you've got an illness, then some people often will tend to, okay, let's put it in the mix, with encouragement, with support. What I hear families tell me when they've been with their loved one who's worked through an advanced care plan, they said, they told me stories I hadn't heard before, or they reminded me of a story that I'd been a long time since I'd heard that story. Now I'm going to carry that story on and tell my children because I've been reminded of it. And so so it's not just about what I want as I'm going towards death and how I want that to look for me. It's actually about retelling the stories, and sometimes they're the stories that that person who's hearing it as a family member was involved with, and they're hearing it in a whole new way other than their own experience. So it's a lovely process if it's held well and supported well. So it needs to be supported really carefully. One of the things that we do see is those families who have talked through and told each other the stories of their life, been thinking about what might lie ahead. Those families are, as that person is coming towards the end of their life, gather around and share stories amongst each other too. So it flows out, the whole process flows out into the life of the family, out into extended family, out into the friends as well. So when families do a lot of talking around this, and they do it in a process. The process actually is a really powerful process. And it's ongoing, and it goes on beyond the death of the person. So it moves out into the lives of all those who've been touched by this person. And that's actually a very powerful legacy, is that you carry your death story also, that they carry your death story, not that you do, but they carry your death story as part of the living that we all are going to do in our lives. The families that are much more hesitant to talk about these things, they are in a process too. And sometimes what we find is that the patient is preparing for their own dying, and the family, or some of the family, not all the family, but some of the family members are in a different space of thinking about it. And so the difficulty then is that the conversations don't happen because they're caring for each other, they're careful about each other. And so the distress can be a little bit higher, and people will sometimes say, I wish we'd talked about it beyond the death. I wish we'd talked about it earlier, or that we had actually talked about it because we didn't talk about it. And now I can't say those things that I really wanted to say, or how I was experiencing the death. We'd always been we talked together in our families often, was what they'll say, and we didn't do this one. So I think sometimes when we have a framework that helps us have those conversations, that is very powerful for families to be fully in the process together. Those families have had conversation, yes, we can hear and see that the relationship is stronger, and they're more ready for those unexpected times when the pain gets a bit, beyond the medication at the moment. And so how do you hold that moment with a person while more medication's coming on board so that they can, manage the whole situation here. So I see in the future that the idea of advanced care planning or preparing for the unexpected would happen long before I'm thinking I'm in a process where I know death's in sight for myself or for my loved one. So that I would see it as a community process, that we do it in community in some way or other. I don't quite know how that would look, but I think there's a lot of spaces that community gathers that they value, where they feel a sense of belonging, and those places, particularly church communities, are a really powerful place. The local GP, I think, is a really powerful person in the life of who can I bring that as an idea to the person at some point. I mean, often the GP will do it, you know, when actually it's looking a bit tricky in the medical life of a person. But I do see advanced care planning being, for its future, and for, I think, it to be accepted, it needs to be long before death. We put it in at death, and then people go, oh, that's about death, rather than this is about how I'm going to live my life. And it's a process, because I might say something at this point in my life, but as I experience life, I might come to another point and say, well, actually, I've now thought this way because life's taught me this, and so now I want to do it this way. And so I see advanced care planning as a process that is an alive process that grows and develops with me, not just at that point of where death's in sight, so I need to do something about that. So a place where I've really seen advanced care planning coming into its own is when a person can't speak for themselves. And I'm thinking of someone who's really at the end of their life and are now having comfort care rather than that they're on life support. But people who they can't speak, they can't hear now, they're really in a comatose state. So the advanced care plan then, what we see is, particularly if the advanced care plan has been drawn up through conversation, and the things that were important in those conversations were written down, rather than just turn off life support or those kind of questions, the detailed questions, but the more the emotional, where my values sit. That's when it's really helpful, because often when a patient comes into that state, we've also had experience of them as a team of care, and so we've gotten to know their personality, we've got to understand them, and so when we read their advanced care plan with the family, we're in conversation. We're in conversation with the family from a known place of the patient. So we actually have seen a whole lot of things that help us understand the meaning of this advanced care plan, and why something that is a standout of, gosh, I wouldn't do that myself, but why it matters to him, that person. So we have to be really careful of the pictures that we have and in how a good death looks or what it should be for a particular person. So the advanced care plan actually helps us understand who this person is and what they're really after, given that we get to know their personalities along the way.